Hello and welcome to the Let's Get Mental podcast. I'm your host Archie, and today is joining me Jack.
Hi guys.
Tim.
Hello again.
And Harry.
Hello.
So on today's podcast, we're actually going to be talking a bit about Christmas and how it can affect our mental and also our physical health during that period of time. So I'm actually going to basically bring it onto the third subject that we're going to be talking about on this podcast, which is how does Christmas affect us personally on this podcast? Does it affect us, our mental health or our physical health? I guess I'll start just to give the, a bit of a broad way and, just sort of introduce it. So for me, Christmas has always been, I've always seen it as a nice time of the year. I've never sort of seen it as like a dreading, obviously thinking about money and food and stuff like that. I've always sort of just tried to push back those feelings and just sort of look at the positive side of it. I mean, yes, of course, there are a lot of bad side effects of Christmas, but I guess I just push those down and don't really think about it, which in a sense is kind of bad of me. But I guess I feel like, there's so much negativity, that it can happen throughout the year. And when you get to a time of the year where there's a lot of positivity, I find myself just looking at the positive side of it and trying not to focus on the negative aspects. So I'm going to come to Harry next. What about you when it comes to Christmas? Do you have good experiences? Do you have a bad experience? Do you find it affecting you?
I've got an interesting history with Christmas. I think as like a young kid, it was a very exciting time. Like I remember, I'm sure we all did like the Christmas plays and stuff at school that, even though they were mandatory, I took them as if I was like actually on the West End, and it was very serious. I remember one year it was actually year 6, and I was part of a transition project where I did half a week in secondary school and half a week in primary school, and I was picked out of 30 kids in the area to do that for my school. It was like the first time it happened. And so because of that, because I was half the time in like a year 7 class effectively, I wasn't able to get like a big part in the play. And my God, I was distraught. I was so upset. And I remember saying it to my auntie at my auntie's house. My auntie went, "Oh, well, at least you're not a bauble." And then my younger sister went, "I'm a bauble." And then I manically laughed and was perfectly fine after that. Just because sibling rivalry and all that. But yeah, so it was good for me as a young kid. And then I think for about how many years, like 7-8 years that I really struggled with my mental health. It was a really difficult time. It used to actually be in my care plan when I was under CAMHS that people from the crisis team would actually call me, like as opposed to, the other way around where you call them. They were actually scheduling to call me around the Christmas time a couple of times just to check on how I was, because it was a very triggering time. I suffered with an eating disorder for years, and it's a very food orientated holiday.
Is that the problem you found with it though for yourself? Would you say the food was one of the bigger things that you find is difficult for Christmas for you?
Yeah, I mean now like I'm okay in the sense that like I cope, and it's I'm able to sort of enjoy Christmas again. But I'd say that's only really happened in like the last 2-3 years, like at a push. The biggest problem I had and my sort of immediate family, like my mum, dad and sister had, was that when we'd go to my grandma's house where like the whole family was, and my other cousins and aunties and uncles, no one knew that I had an eating disorder. So for years it was hiding it, and how are we going to get through Christmas, and how is Harry going to go unseen from having an eating disorder, basically. So it wasn't until this year actually that most of my family found out that anything had happened. Like even when I was an inpatient, they used to let me out on the weekends so I could go and see my grandparents in Grimsby and go see my grandparents in Hull, so that it was the appearance that I was still at home. So and that was per my request. I didn't want them to know. So for years it was a thing of, how do I get through this holiday pretending that like everything's fine? And well, that was one aspect of it. And then the actual other aspect was, you don't want to sit there and eat Christmas dinner. You don't want to sit there and have this massive plate of food. You don't want the snacks. You don't want the advent calendars. You don't want the packs of chocolate for presents. Like I would distinctly remember Christmas after Christmas just throwing chocolate immediately in the bin as soon as I'd get it. Like it was that intense to me because I was that ill. Like even the thought of it being near me was like, just I need it away from me.
It's
And
sorry, I just want to say it's interesting. You obviously talk about food and stuff, and actually we are going to be talking about the food implications of around Christmas and stuff like that. And obviously I share your pain when it came to the Christmas plays, because obviously they're a horrible thing to do. But if you got something else to say, I was just gonna move on. But
no, I was just gonna say that was sort of like a large period, but now Christmas is really about. I really enjoy like getting presents for people. Like that's my favorite part of Christmas. So the build up to Christmas now is more like I'm excited because I'll get to see their reactions when like they open the presents and stuff. So it's taken on different lives, but I think it does, doesn't it, for everyone?
I like that because I'm quite similar in that regard. I quite like to. I find the more exciting part of Christmas is getting presents for other people. But I'm going to come to Jack now. So Jack, Christmas, it can be quite a stressful time. It can also be quite a nice time. What's your experience with it?
I'll say that I have mixed feelings towards Christmas myself. I remember when I was younger, when I was a kid, I remember it was kind of a very innocent time for me, and like it was all warm and glowy and fuzzy and like magically, like all the lights and whatnot. Like it all felt rather like surreal, and it was like a magical time of the year. But I guess that as you get older, like that kind of innocence goes away, and you're kind of exposed to it's a lot more than that Christmas time. And a lot of people can struggle. Like, I mean, my family isn't really in this bracket, but I'm aware that a lot of my friends' families have struggled because of poverty and whatnot, because there's a kind of like a heavy financial strain around Christmas time, with obviously getting everyone presents and whatnot. Although it is my favorite time of the year as well, as both of you have mentioned before, but still I'm aware that it can be quite a heavy strain on people that find it hard to kind of get the financial resources together to get other people presents. And obviously, like for a lot of people, that is unfortunately what they see Christmas has been about, like about being presents. Whereas in reality, it should be about kind of like family and just spending time with your loved ones, I guess. But yeah, on that note, actually, obviously when I was younger, it was a time of family for me, and it was a time where all my loved ones kind of got together. But as I got older, like more recently, 4 years ago, my parents got divorced, and I don't really think that's a thing that you actually completely recover from. I'd say that I have kind of like obviously kind of like digested it, processed it, and moved on from it. But that being said, I do think it is something that will always kind of like stay with you when your parents are divorced. And Christmas time is, I'd say, a triggering time for that. And it's like, and you see kind of like your household and you think, oh, wow, this is like entirely different as to when I was younger. And it doesn't feel right. Like it doesn't feel like the magical, happy, like fuzzy feeling that you felt when you're younger, because it isn't kind of like the same setting and you haven't got like the same loved ones there. So it's just strange, like having a different kind of scene.
I just want to say, I think you bring actually a really interesting perspective on that, because obviously I'm very privileged that obviously my parents haven't ever, haven't had to divorce, but I have wondered about like, obviously, because I do have a close friend that has divorced parents, and I've always asked him, how does Christmas work? Obviously, do you go, Christmas with, your dad or your mum, and then, the New Year's you do go with somebody else, and obviously I think that can be quite a, it's quite a horrible thing to obviously put on a child, or a person just in general, just to choose between who you want to go, who do you want to be on Christmas with. But I'm going to come to Tim next now. Christmas, nice, naughty or nice, has it been for you?
That's a very good question. It's very similar to Jack. When I was younger, I loved Christmas because it felt kind of like magic, all the bright colours of tinsel and baubles and lights. It was fantastic. But one thing I've been aware of as I've grown older is that I think Christmas has become very over-commercialised. And so there's lots of social expectations as well. And that's been quite irritating to have, like advertisers, advertisements on telly, and on the internet, kind of almost sell you this image of Christmas, of how Christmas should be. I reject. There is no one, it's not one size fits all. Though one thing I do like about Christmas personally, I like gift giving, because it's a way of saying, for me, it's a way of saying thank you and appreciating that person in your life. And particularly this year, actually, I've got into doing personalized gifts, which is something I've never done before, and I really enjoyed doing that. But yeah, I have a sort of love-hate relationship with Christmas, though I will admit it is not my favorite time of year. My favorite time of year is the summertime. Although I was born in the summer, I was born in August, so it's been programmed into me at birth to love the summer sun, as it were.
I think I'm sure a lot of people like summer as well, but
Yes.
I definitely like about what you said about the idea that it's sort of like it's advertised now as like it's because obviously before people would get the wooden toys and stuff like that, but now the advertisement for Christmas is money, let's make as much as possible. What can we sell, what's the new item in, let's sell the baby Yodas as much as possible, in the shops. I mean, as I say, the amount of those I've seen, but like these things get forced and almost shoved, on us basically to force us to buy things. And I think that brings us on actually quite well to the next point, which is obviously the lead up to Christmas and how, it can be, well, money obviously is one of the first things. I mean, obviously you've got to pay, you feel guilty if you don't buy presents for your family and loved ones. Obviously traveling to, people that you want to see. I mean, we haven't even mentioned COVID obviously this year, because that's obviously going to be a big issue. And then obviously, like Harry said, eating disorders, that can be a real big deal for people. So I guess I'm gonna come around again and just ask a bit more about this particular Christmas that we're leading up to. Is there anything that you're going to do differently? Obviously, are you going to maybe risk COVID breaking rules and going to go see friends and loved ones? Are you going to, have you got different plans this Christmas? Has it been changed up? Maybe you can't go see someone that you actually want to see, that you really miss. How's buying gifts been for you? Is it, do you find that you're actually really struggling to get the money to buy presents for loved ones? So I'm going to come to Harry again first. Are you worried about the lead up to Christmas for yourself? Once again, obviously talking about the the food disorders and also maybe buying gifts and stuff like that.
I mean, first of all, it's crazy, isn't it, to think that we've only had 26 years of Christmas officially, since Mariah released All I Want from Christmas Is You, which is when Christmas officially started. I don't think it existed before that song. Yeah, I think it's a very, what, I've been saying this for the last couple of weeks. The first set of Christmas trees that I saw on like a main road in our town was back in October, and it was before Halloween.
Yeah.
And I made a joke about it to my friends at the time, thinking like, oh, people are really trying to fast forward this year. Like, they're just like, okay, it's now Christmas, which means it's nearly done. But everyone's really putting the effort in with like house decorations and stuff this year, more than like the last 5 years combined, I'd say. Like, everyone's gone all out on the house decorations and doing their front gardens up, and there's projectors everywhere. And I don't know if that's just my area, but I feel like because we've been in this second like period of time where most people are having to stay in the house, unless they're able to work, people have just sort of gone like, okay, well, let's just go over the top of the house for this year, which is understandable. People are trying to find joy in anything, and this season to me is about joy. I think how I sort of reclaimed Christmas, if you like, from my sort of past with mental health struggles, was about giving, that thought of giving. So like, since I was 18, every year we've gone, and it started off with me and my family, and then the last 2 years I've done it by myself and done a massive like Tesco shop for our local animal rescue centre. So I did that about 2 weeks ago, and it's just that sort of feeling of, oh, I've gave back, and that's like a nice thing to do. And you feel that sort of communal spirit of everyone sort of looking out for each other. But it is definitely going to be different this year. I know it's so trivial in the grand scheme of things, but like a big part of my Christmas since turning 18 was like my Christmas Eve night out, my Boxing Day night out. That because I was seeing my friends, and it was like,
They're
you
quite
know,
a
my
big thing for you, was it?
yeah, it was like my extended family. They were my support network, you know. So, and I'm in a small town, so it's not like I'm going out in London or Leeds or Sheffield or Manchester. Like, it's just our little town where everyone knows everyone, and you know all the bouncers, you know the bar staff. Like, it's like a family feeling, and they always ended the night with playing "All I Want for Christmas Is You," and I've never seen more festive people in my life. You know, everyone stood there with a VK screaming to Mariah, which is a vibe. And now this year it's like, okay, I'll see you in March if we're allowed. So, you know, it is different, and it is so trivial because I'm also very aware, like I work in the care sector, working with adults with several long-term health conditions. And when I hear some of the stories of what people have been through this year, like I spoke to a woman the other week and she's lost 7 people to COVID. And like, I honestly don't know how people are getting through such a triggering time like Christmas, because when you think of Christmas, like, just as trivial as I thought about, oh, well, normally I like see my friends and I plan everything around my friends, and then I'll see my family on Christmas Day and on Boxing Day, but in between I see my friends. What happens with all those people this year who normally spend it with family or friends who are no longer here? You know, grief is such a huge part of Christmas for a lot of people. You know, it might be the first Christmas without a loved one, or if someone's lost a parent or a close relative or a close friend or a partner or something. It's Christmas is a time, isn't it, where you reflect on that and giving and joy. And if those people aren't there who brought you joy, it's
I think one thing that I've taken away is like it's almost like obviously when it comes up to Christmas, there's sort of like, I don't know what to say, like this act that you feel like you have to put on, that you have to enjoy Christmas, and obviously that's hard when a lot of people have such negative experiences around Christmas, and obviously, and then they associate it with previous things, bad things that's happened in their lives. But I think one thing that you did say, obviously, about the COVID, about friends, being able to go out to bars and stuff like that, and you've had this sort of sense of community. Obviously, this will be the first Christmas, most likely. I don't think anything's changing anytime soon. Anyway, that you're not going to be able to do that, which I will say, at least you're not alone on that factor. I'm sure a lot of your friends are probably feeling the same, and also I think everyone in the UK, or probably in a lot of places, are probably feeling the same. So, Jack, leading up to Christmas, obviously, particularly this year, obviously you spoke about how, a little bit yourself about how Christmas has been for you in the past, but for this particular Christmas, do you have any concerns, any worries? I mean, do you feel like you're going to be able to get everything done in time? Is there any sort of a feeling that that you might be disappointed when leading up to Christmas, or yet again bringing it always back to COVID? Is that going to affect your Christmas for you?
Well, yeah, I think that COVID is definitely going to be a huge factor of change this Christmas, because whereas previous Christmases I kind of like spent it like visiting all my family and like relations and closest friends, this Christmas obviously like we aren't allowed to do that. Like you're only allowed to kind of like mingle with people in certain support bubbles and whatnot. So I won't be able to actually visit all my family this year. And again, I'm even lucky to be able to say even talk to them on a phone call or on Zoom. Like as Harry said, a lot of people have actually lost family members this year due to COVID. And I think that mental health services could even be overwhelmed around Christmas time, because there'll be a lot of people kind of like suffering from the loss of loved ones and experiencing depression and perhaps even increased suicide rates because of it. So I think it's important to be mindful of the damage that COVID has had recently, especially around this time of family and love. But again, I think it's also kind of like important what Tim said about the commercial kind of like spin on things, because this year, like I think purely because we've been inside more, I think that online deals have kind of like increased a lot. Like the places that are doing all these sales to get rid of stock, it's crazy. And like I've logged on like my social media every day, and I've seen an advertisement for like Cyber Monday, Black Friday, but like extensions to all of this through December. And it's just crazy seeing all these like financial deals just like thrust in your face. And I imagine that must be leaving some people feeling quite kind of like broken financially, especially if they feel like they can't even afford these reduced prices on items. And again, yeah, like you said, it can lead to feelings of disappointment, or kind of like feeling like you're letting your loved ones down if you can't get presents for them. Like, I know that I'm lucky and I have been able to get kind of like presents for those in my immediate family, but I know that lots of people are struggling around this time of year. So yeah, I'd say that it definitely is going to be different this year, although I am still in the Christmas spirit and I am still trying to like find joy in it. Like Harry said, like that's kind of like what's keeping me in the festive spirit, like the idea of giving and kind of like finding that festive joy and kind of like still connecting with my loved ones and being grateful for the fact that my loved ones are still with me.
It's nice to hear that obviously you're thinking positive about it, obviously with such negative things going on. Obviously one other thing you obviously mentioned there is about, stores and stuff like that and being able to buy things. And obviously I think this is a perfect opportunity to talk to Tim about this, obviously, because do we think we're actually going to see retail be around for much longer? I mean, do you think these are all going to shut? But obviously, Tim, do you think retail will be around? But also, leading up to Christmas, do you have any worries, any concerns, anything that really you might panic about during that time?
Well, on that first point, I don't think. Well, most things are going online nowadays, and I think COVID has been the catalyst to accelerate that. I think things were always destined to go online, and the high street has become obsolete faster because of the current situation. But on the second point there, do I have any anxieties or troubles leading up to Christmas? That's a difficult one to answer, because I don't want it to get too personal, as I don't use this space to talk about how I feel as this is public. But
yeah, of course, yeah, don't have to say anything.
But for me, I will say this: for me, as we get closer and closer to Christmas, the social expectations seem to get louder and louder and louder. As everyone's sort of getting getting in the spirit, and advertisers are advertising more, and people or corporations are trying to shove the image of the perfect Christmas, when the perfect Christmas doesn't exist, because nothing is perfect, because that's how this universe works. Shoving that image down your throat of everything has to be perfect. It gets a little bit, I don't want to sound like a Scrooge, but it gets irritating. But once Christmas Day arrives, you spend time with your family. Well, if you can spend time with your family this year, it's spending time with loved ones is a distraction from all that. So Christmas Day itself is fantastic, but the build up to it, I don't think is that good, or it certainly didn't used to be. But maybe that's just me getting old.
No, I think you share a fair point. And I think it's important that we have, we speak openly about it, and obviously say that some people don't like Christmas and some people don't like the lead up to it, and I can kind of understand that. Obviously, I think it was I can't remember if it was you, Harry, or I think it was you, Harry, who said it. Who said Christmas is now getting earlier and earlier. In October we're seeing Christmas decorations. I think I remember seeing some as well when they shop up in October. And it's kind of like, oh, Christmas again. I've got to start thinking about what I need to do and stuff like that. But let's move on to just Christmas Day now. Obviously, that's going to be a big one for people. I mean, obviously, for some people, it's a very, very uncomfortable situation. You've got abuse survivors who've had to deal with abuse potentially around that time. People obviously, once again, who suffer losses, like you were saying about animals, family members, who are not around during that time, or like Jackie was saying, seeing loved ones can be a very, it can be a very awful time for people. Obviously, once again, Christmas, obviously for the elderly, can be a horrible time. They can be alone. They may actually never see anybody during that time. And then obviously we can bring it back to the food situation for Christmas, and obviously that you feel like you have to. I mean, I think I was talking to my brother about this, in the sense that on Christmas Day, for some reason, that we feel like we have to engorge ourselves with a huge amount of food, which I feel which is obviously quite unhealthy for us to consume that large amount. But obviously there's alcohol and all these other things that we're supposed to drink on Christmas because we're with friends and family. So I mean, I'm going to come around again. So Christmas Day, you know, for you, Harry, is it a horrible experience for you? Do you not, you know, like it in a sense? Do you feel like, or in another sense, is there anything that you would say to people out there who possibly, you know, have bad experiences on Christmas, and, you know, what you would recommend for them to do?
I wouldn't say Christmas is like horrible for me, because I'm very blessed to like have the family that I do have. So it's always nice, you know, being able to give presents, and you know, you always do you have to make sure that you're reacting loud enough for your parents to appreciate that you actually enjoy the present. You know, like I feel like I'm expressive, but I'm also like, I am such a processor that when I'm opening presents, I'm like, my first thought is, oh, how can I use this? But not, oh my goodness, but sometimes you have to sort of do the performative aspect.
How is this useful to me?
yeah, I'm just sort of like, oh, cool, like I needed this, like this is good. Not where I need to like stand up and clap. But you know, sometimes you do that, and it's all part of the fun. And what I've done for the last 2 years, because you sort of get Christmas morning out of the way, and then, you know, you have lunch, and that's kind of it. Especially if you have a small family. I have been doing this thing on Twitter, which I believe the comedian Sarah Millican started, which is a hashtag called Join In, and it's people who are like by themselves. You all tweet together, so you like all reply to each other, like just random people, and you share like what you're doing throughout the day. And I did that all day last year, and I did it. I've actually sort of participated in quite a few years that it's been going on, because I just really like the idea. And I think this last year was like the first year where I haven't then gone and deleted the tweets, because I had this really weird feeling of, oh my God, if like friends see this or anything, they're going to think I'm like a loser for being by myself and talking to random people. But last year there was just because I did it all day and I was by myself, it was like a very overwhelming positive feeling of like support. And, you know, it was quite healthy to talk about the fact that, you know, we didn't have a lot going on, and being there for people. And like I was talking to people who had lost loved ones, or people who had like a relationship breakdown like the week before Christmas. And you know, and then people were cheering others up with pictures of the dogs and Santa outfits and stuff. So it's a really nice thing to sort of be involved in. So my plan for this Christmas Day is to do the same thing. So obviously I'll be with family, but I'll be probably participating in that again and connecting with people.
That's really nice. I think that's something that maybe, you know, we could all look into participating in, because it sounds like a really nice thing. Obviously, you know, trying to look out for other people, you know, hear other people's stories, you know, and try and just give people a little bit of comfort, you know, around the Christmas time. Just saying that, you know, there are people here, we're listening to you, and just, you know, don't feel like you're alone in any situation. Jack, Christmas for you, I mean, do you find, you know, is there, you know, situations there that you're not looking forward to? Is there, you know, do you feel like, you know, the food's going to be, you know, too much to handle in a sense? Do you feel like that's something that, you know, you might get a bit of anxiety about? You know, Christmas Day for you, what would you say?
Well, on the whole, I see Christmas Day as a time of enjoyment and festivities, and like a time of joy and kind of like merriment. But to answer your question, I can actually think of a scenario a couple of years ago, especially with the whole like food anxiety thing, because I remember a couple of years ago, I thought, yeah, it was definitely like a part of Christmas Day, but I spent that part of Christmas Day with some friends who were like kind of like close friends of mine at the time. And I remember we had like a massive Christmas dinner, like everyone was sat together at this table, and like the expectation, like the general consensus was, oh, that they've cooked you this wonderful meal, so you have to eat all of it, kind of thing. And I remember like at the time, I wasn't actually that comfortable around a few members of the group, and they actually gave me anxiety. Like I'd describe myself as kind of like an empath, so I get kind of like good and bad vibes from people. But there was a couple of members in the group that like I just wasn't comfortable around, and I was obviously anxious because of that, like being around them on sort of a day as big as Christmas Day. So when I'm anxious because I have anxiety, sometimes I lose my appetite. And I remember I wasn't actually able to eat all of the meal. And I remember like it just felt very intimidating, because I was eating it quite slowly, because I couldn't eat it too fast, otherwise I wouldn't have felt very well. So I was eating it at kind of like my own pace, and I felt like everyone was kind of just like watching me and judging me and kind of like questioning me and like kind of like interrogating me in a way like non-verbally, kind of like saying, oh, like how come you aren't kind of like managing to eat like the rest of us, kind of thing. So yeah, I think it can be intimidating for people, both even with anxiety as well as eating disorders sometimes, depending on the context. But yeah, I think this year,
sorry, Karen.
It's one more thing. Like this year, I think it is different as well because of COVID, obviously. And like you and Harry said before, I think that the elderly especially will struggle this year, or people that have lost loved ones due to COVID for being lonely. And I think that it's important to remember to be charitable in this time and kind of like support people like that. So it's definitely admirable what Harry did, the whole support thing for that whole day. That must have taken a lot of energy, but I can imagine it must have been very, very rewarding, that sense of kind of like for what you did there.
Yeah, it's quite fun as well because, you know, you have that sort of live, live watch programs as well. So like everyone does their like Christmas Day TV schedule, don't they? So, you know, people were like live tweeting each other reactions to whatever soap drama was on that year. And then like another thing that I have been trying to do more is like support like local and small businesses. Like I've got a friend who she has an Etsy store called Land's Pet Peeves, and she hand paints people's pets on like shrink wrap plastic and shrinks them down into key rings, and they're like so detailed and so incredible. So I've got like quite a few friends those as gifts because they're absolutely obsessed with the dog. So I thought, oh, why wouldn't I do that? And you're also supporting like a small business. And then like I had another friend, Ellie, who has her jewelry website where she hand makes like silver jewelry and silver rings and stuff, and I've got a few like gorgeous unique pieces. And you know, not only are they great gifts, but then you also get that sense of like I'm supporting like an art and someone being creative, which especially through this year where the arts have not been funded and, you know, there's not really a backup plan for those people, it's nice to sort of give back in that sense as well, if that makes sense.
I think what you've said there is a really important point. But I just wanted to talk a little bit, just for a second, about what Jack was saying about the mental health side of Christmas, because I think he mentioned it earlier about the services being quite a bit taken up, and I think it's interesting you mentioned that, because I was talking to my mum about, because she works in the Midlands area to do with a lot of these services, and she was saying that she's had reportedly being told that like pretty much they are overwhelmed when it comes to mental health services, when it comes to crisis teams, and it also comes to people going to hospitals and places obviously that to be taken care of. Like all of these places are overflowing. But I also just interested to talk about the food thing for 1 second as well, just from a little bit of my perspective, because it's a weird one for me this Christmas, because for my entire life, for Christmas, I've always looked forward to the food on Christmas. I've always sort of been, like, oh, I love what I eat. But this is the first Christmas I'm going to, I'm basically being vegan, and it's kind of weird because it's sort of had a bit of a split down our household, because we have two people who aren't vegan and there's three of us that are, and it's a very sort of weird that I'm kind of not too sure about what to eat on Christmas. How we're going to do that sort of situation and what I'm going to be eating in that sense. And it's a little bit worrying for me about because I'm so used to looking forward to the food on Christmas, so it is a bit of a weird one for me in that regard. But coming to Tim now. Tim, Christmas Day, do you love it? Do you hate it? Is there moments that you're worried about? Obviously, don't feel like you have to say anything if you don't want to. You can just talk about other people's experience that you might know about, people who have suffered losses, or just in general you could be talking about people who have been alone, or the food.
Well, Christmas Day for me is fantastic because the build-up, which I talked about, is finally over. Thank God. Hallelujah. And it's also what I like about Christmas Day is as I mentioned, I like gift giving. I don't expect anything in return, by the way. So I really like the the reactions of others when they open up something I got them, and it makes me feel good that I put so much thought and effort into it, and it's good to see that I've made other people happy through being thoughtful. So personally, that and also another thing with Christmas Day is that for me, New Year's is also coming up like a week after, and that's another thing to look forward to, because it's a time for reflection, and also I personally I look forward to every New Year that comes along, because I like that feeling of starting on a clean slate. But no, generally Christmas Day is pretty positive
Are you
for me.
one of those people that says next year is going to be better?
Yeah, absolutely. 2021 will be a better year. It will.
No, I think that's good, and I think one thing that I do like that you said there is about about giving people gifts, because I think I'm a bit similar in that situation, that I find it very hard to show my feelings to somebody, like showing how much I appreciate them or I love them. So I actually find I'm doing it with gifts and showing how much I listen to somebody, learning their interests, learning what they like, and then buying them a gift based on that is something that I quite enjoy doing in that sense. But obviously you bring us on to a good point there too, about obviously getting to New Year's Eve and then obviously after Christmas, and obviously the January sort of low, sort of down, going back to work and stuff like that. I mean, obviously this can be quite a daunting time for some people, because obviously a lot of people have spent a lot of money during Christmas, which means that they might be struggling financial wise. A lot of people have the fear of, oh God, I've got to go back to work. I can't do another year of what I've just done. I mean, obviously, once again, we come back to COVID. I mean, obviously, we have no idea how COVID's going to be treating us in the new year. So I'm going to come to Harry first, in the sense that, I mean, well, there's quite a few questions here, but I guess we'll start simple and just say, we'll go with after the Christmas period, is there any, useful advice you might give to people that might, be worried after the Christmas period, financial wise? Anything that you recommend to sort of keep their mental health, in a good sense? I mean, anything you'd recommend there?
I think financially, I've always respected, especially this year with friends and stuff, when they've said look, I just can't afford to do presents this year, for everyone. So people do Secret Santas, and I think just being honest is, well, it's important, in general anyway, but I think it's really important around this time of year to not put too high expectations on yourself, and not try and compare yourself to what everyone else is doing, and not even what everyone else, what the small majority of people who like to publicize when they buy presents for people. You don't have to compare yourselves to those people. Just do what you can and be honest with people around you. I think people would rather see you happy than, get a really nice gift and be really overwhelmed. So I definitely would set those conversations up earlier. And even now, if you're thinking, oh, I've left it too late, but I really can't afford a present, I'm going to have to borrow money, I'm going to have to get a loan, or I'm going to have to figure something out. Just tell people that you're struggling for money, and that you'll still see them, or you'll still talk to them, or you can get people a card or whatever, and plan to do something when COVID's over, so you've got something nice to look forward to when you feel better and they feel better.
I really like that. Oh, sorry, no, carry on if you want.
No, I was just going to say that was just sort of the main advice that I'd give.
Well, still, we'll be talking about January in a second, but I really like what I really like what you were saying there about the idea that just be honest. If you can't afford something, don't feel because I think that's one of the horrible things about Christmas, is that you feel like you're tied in to buy people presents. You feel like you've got to make some contribution. You've got to show people that because if someone buys you a present, you feel like you've got to give them one back, and it's in a way that's sort of a horrible aspect of Christmas, that you feel like you've got to be nice to people. And I do like that you said people should just be honest and just say, look, I can't afford presents this year. And I know many people who actually are in those sort of circumstances, because I know a friend that's literally started to run out of money, basically out of money, because he's been working, but his place of work got shut down due to COVID, and he's basically all his money's been going to rent and things like that, and he's obviously running out. So I completely understand that.
Yeah, I think especially when it's with friends or close loved ones or even family where you've got that relationship. I mean, it's funny because I've bought most of my friends this year, apart from like the people who I actually, I guess, see the most. Like I've seen two of my friends during lockdown in a socially distanced way, and we've been on holiday together this year, and we've spent a lot of this year together and been through a lot as a group, and the three of us have all decided we're not doing presents for each other, because we've just got that relationship where it's not the end of the world, like it really isn't, and we'd all rather be like, let's just save up for when this is over and we can go away, or we can do something. Like I'd rather us all be okay financially than stressed and pulled in 80 different ways. But when a friend's like, I say, I'm getting you a gift for Christmas, or like I'm really excited for you to see your present, I don't expect them to say they're getting me one back, but when they do, I'm excited, but I do have to say, like, you don't have, like, please don't spend a lot of money on me. When someone's background or someone's sort of financial situation just through conversation, I'm very trying to be really sensitive and cautious about that, where I don't want to feel bad for them getting me like a lavish present just because they, that's the expectation, when in actual fact it's them putting it on themselves and not anyone else doing that. I think a lot of these expectations are what we're taking on ourselves, which seems to be the root of the problem.
I'm quite similar in that case. I will sometimes buy friends of mine that I know can't afford things, and I'll buy them a present, and like, oh, I can't get you anything back. I'm just like, don't worry about it, something like that. Like I'm just being nice. But coming next to Jack, I mean, the aftermath of Christmas. We could also mention here, obviously, New Year's Eve. Is there any concerns there for you? But is there any advice you'd give to people who are facing the aftermath of Christmas, whether that be financially, the mental health impacts? Obviously, we will talk about January in a bit, but just talking about the aftermath of Christmas, of what comes from it.
I think it is important, as Harry said, to just communicate with people that you usually get presents for, because obviously this year has been difficult, and if you're struggling financially, it's important to have these conversations and just be like, oh, should we do presents this year? Like, just be honest about your financial situation. And even if you still want to get presents, it doesn't have to be something extravagant or like super expensive. Like, it could even be something simple that you could just make yourself, like something DIY. I think that DIY gifts are they can be more, they can be appreciated more than presents that are bought, because a lot more effort would go into actually making something than buying something. And quite often presents like this are actually cheaper than presents that you can buy for people. So especially since a lot of people have a lot more time on their hands because of furlough and lockdown and whatnot, maybe they could use this time to kind of like make something for someone that they care about this Christmas. And in that way, they'd be saving a lot of money, and at the same time making something that would truly mean something to someone that they care about.
It's the thought that counts. It really is, Jack. You've hit the nail. You've hit the nail on the head there. Expensive gifts are not the way forward. It's making something personalized, or like you say, DIY is better, because you've made something just for that person, and it's totally unique, and nobody else will have that.
I mean, it could even be a card. I just want to say.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really looking forward to whatever you make for all of us, Jack. Honestly, I'm not bothered.
DIY now for all of you.
I'm not bothered that you're not spending a lot of money on us. I mean, I am personally offended, but it's okay. We'll appreciate whatever.
I think I really do like the idea that obviously making gifts, and I think that's a really important one, because I say they don't cost a lot, and I think even if it's just a simple card that you've just put a lot of effort into for somebody, like that can be enough, just to show that you appreciate someone, or that you're not you haven't forgot about them. It can mean more than just not giving anything. But like you said, expensive gifts, obviously, whilst it is nice to have the new technology and stuff like that, does it really mean anything to it? I mean, next year something new is going to come out, and that whatever you're using now will most likely not be the latest new model, and it doesn't really have any sort of sentimental value to that object. But Tim, the aftermath of Christmas, your perspective?
Like I touched on earlier, the aftermath is good for me, because I'm looking forward to Christmas Day. Usually for me it's fantastic, and and all that. And I'm now looking forward to New Year's Eve, and reflecting on the year. Yeah, I know reflection for some people can be tough, and it is for me sometimes as well. But I like to focus on what went well. 2020 hasn't been a total train wreck. I mean, it's mostly been a train wreck, but it's not been a total train wreck. I mean, we're all here now, and I think a lot of people done better than they thought they would. It's also important as well, I think, as New Year comes, or as people reflect, I think people should definitely reward themselves for getting through these unprecedented times. So yes, I know it said it's good to get gifts for other people, but get something nice for yourself. Treat yourself. When times are tough, treat yourself and reward yourself, and pat yourself on the back for saying, yes, well done me. I got through this year, and a lot's happened, and I didn't think I could do it, but I've done it, and that's something to be proud of. That's all I have to say really regarding.
I think that's good.
Aftermath of Christmas.
I think it's important that you obviously, mentioned just keeping positive. Obviously, that's such a big part of this, and obviously, keeping a positive mindset is better than anything. I mean, as I say, looking after your mental health is more important than anything else, like you were saying. But I mean, just to say, for anyone out there that does need help, you may be facing family problems or anything to do with your mental health, there are 24/7 hotlines out there. Obviously, the Samaritans is a great example of that. But I guess if we're moving on to New Year's Eve here with what you were saying, and looking forward to that, and obviously January, obviously, which comes around. I mean, does it become a really depressing time of the year for us? I mean, because as I say, like, almost people would say arguably the best part of the year is gone. Probably the time where you have most time off. You get to eat a bit more of what you want to eat, and now you're going back to work. You're going back to normal. Obviously, something like yourself, Tim, you might find that quite enjoyable. But as I say, then obviously you've got the money problems, and obviously we'll come to COVID. But Harry, for you, do you find January a hard time? Do you find when it comes around to it, is it a depressing time? Do you find that you're happy that almost Christmas is gone and you're looking forward to getting back to whatever it may be you're doing?
I think New Year's Eve for me, since I was about, I want to say like 12, I think, me and my family used to go to this lodge that we had like a timeshare thing in, and I don't know why, but this one New Year's Eve I was I do know why, it's just come back to me. So I did a blog every day between the ages of 12 and 13, which I'm not telling you what it is because it is the most dramatic thing that I've ever read in my entire life. Like, everything was a drama. But I distinctly remember like having this feeling of, it was getting to the end of the year, so obviously like my blog was ending and I was feeling very reflective, and I just had this talk with myself in the mirror on New Year's Eve, like, okay, this is what we're going to do next year, this is what we've done this year, like, be grateful for this, be grateful for that. And then that's been a practice that I've done ever since. So on New Year's Eve, if I can find time, like getting close towards the countdown, I'll just like sneak away and sort of reflect. And yeah, if anyone saw me talking to myself in the mirror, they'd think I was insane. But the actual practice of it, I think this year specifically, after the sort of difficult personal times that I've gone through, made me realize that was probably one of the rare times during a year I'd actually reflect on things and process things. And, my whole mindset now is about being present and being in the moment and allowing, any emotion, positive or negative, to sort of come, do its due course and go. And, and yesterday was yesterday, this morning was this morning, and, right now is right now. So I think all in all, that practice was probably getting me ready for that. So I think it'll be interesting this New Year's Eve, because I've sort of been like, well, we've been doing this for a bit now, I've been talking to myself throughout the last few months, to sort of rebuild my strength and ground myself. And I think it's an important practice, I think, that everyone should really adapt, where you do reflect. And when you feel really low, I've learned that such a powerful thing you can do for yourself is remind yourself what you're grateful for. Because when it feels like everything's gone wrong and you have no control over anything, or you've lost something or someone or a relationship or a friendship or something, remind yourself what you actually have, and it kind of puts things into perspective that, it's not the end of the world. And I think that's something that we could all really do going into the next year.
I really like that part about reflection and just like looking at the pot, like just what are you grateful for? Because I think that's a lot of things that I think that a lot of us obviously, look over. And don't get me wrong, if you're depressed or have, a mental health illness and that's affecting you, without a doubt, obviously, look after yourself. But at the same time, do you think that there are people out there who have, far, far worse circumstances than what we currently have? I mean, as I say, there's people out there who are homeless. There's people out there in other countries who obviously, struggle to eat every day. So obviously you have to look at yourself and say, well, what, you are grateful for. And I think that's a terrific point that people can look to do when they're when they're feeling down. But Jack, January, positive, negative, how do you find it? Do you find going back to work a bit of a struggle for you, or are you quite do you find it easily getting back into that sort of work mode?
Well, I do think it can be quite kind of like you can feel burned out in a way after kind of like all the festivities and magics around Christmas time. Like obviously it's a very surreal time, and it's kind of like filled with gift giving and with lots of kind of like treats and whatnot. And I think a big part of getting past that in January is like you have to kind of like pack away everything that you've set up in December. Like you have to kind of like put away the tree, like kind of like dispose of all the wrapping paper and whatnot, and put all your kind of like everything that you've received away. And it can be quite emotionally and physically taxing for some people to kind of like put their minds to kind of like making all these preparations and getting sorted. And obviously on top of that, you have to go back to work. And for me, like it can be kind of like, I feel like, oh, I'm not looking forward to this, especially at the start. But I think it does take some getting used to. And in my experience as well, like it does require quite a bit of motivation to kind of like motivate myself to kind of like do all these preparations after Christmas and like kind of like put everything away ready for next year. So yeah, I think that it is quite emotionally numbing in that sense, and it can burn you out. So, but at the same time, as was touched on just now by Harry, I think it is important to be reflective. And recently I have actually started journaling, and it really helps me, like, because I get down sometimes. I have good days and bad days. And I think that Christmas will definitely be a kind of like an emotionally heightened time. So if you are feeling in a dark place and kind of like a bad headspace, I definitely recommend like writing down kind of like what you're experiencing, or even if that is difficult for you, just write positive things about yourself and what you're proud of, like what you've achieved today. Like write it all down on a piece of paper, and it can actually help rewire your thoughts and help you to kind of like feel in a better headspace if you're struggling.
I think the part about headspace is really important, what you said there, because I say my brother's actually does actually quite the same thing to you. He actually writes down, I think he keeps a journal for every, I don't know if he does it every day, but I know he does it most days. And then obviously positive thoughts is another thing that he writes. He has that all over his room. He'll have think positive and all that, or many different quotes of how to, just for everyday sort of thing, not to just do with Christmas, but just in general, we'll have them throughout the year. Tim, January, obviously I imagine you're going to say you're jumping up and down with joy with Christmas ending, and but I imagine you're probably not jumping up and down in joy knowing that probably we will have more COVID tier systems impacting us.
Oh God. No, I'm not a Scrooge. I'm not jumping up and down. Yeah, Christmas has ended. I like Christmas. I just don't like how over commercialized it's become.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point.
So there you go.
Can I just add to that? Wasn't that like an old theory that Santa wasn't red before the Coca-Cola adverts?
That's true.
That is correct.
Coca-Cola. Is that actually true?
Yeah,
he was green.
Isn't that
No, I think it
crazy
was-
though?
No, I think it was blue.
No,
Yeah,
there was a thing about the green Santa because I remember distinctly having a Christmas play in primary school about the green and the red Santa. Like that was a thing.
yeah.
But I didn't know if that was like an old wives' tale, if that's actually what happened.
No,
'Cause-
it is true. It is true.
well, that shows you the impact, doesn't it? Jesus, that's like a huge, like to change the color of Santa and be like, "Yep, this is the law now."
Yeah,
Well,
It shows how powerful commercial activity can really be, even changing the image of Santa around Christmas time.
Mm.
I don't know why. But people let that slide. I don't know why people sort of said, "Yeah, okay, let's just accept this as a socially normal Santa now."
Well, there wasn't social media back in 1898.
True.
Well, there was the electric telegraph, but that's not exactly Instagram. But I digress. Anyway, so the question January blues, wasn't it?
Just how you feel about January. Are you is there any worries for you going back to work? Do you feel like your money impacts you after Christmas, and then obviously COVID? Are you concerned about that?
I'm not over. I mean, I'm. COVID doesn't keep me awake at night. It is concerning, but it doesn't keep me awake at night. But that's just because I've got very good at controlling my own anxiety. Although I will say it takes a lot to do that. It takes many years of practice, but it can be done. But no, I say in the start of January, I'm very, very hopeful for the start of the year. But I know that a lot of people aren't, and I encourage those who don't think they can face the new year to talk to someone about it. Could be a friend, could be a family member, or if none of those will do, or you don't feel you can, I highly recommend you encourage rather that someone should call the Samaritans, fantastic organisation, just to talk things through with a volunteer. On a personal note, they've around because I've called them at Christmas before, because they are actually open on Christmas Day. They're a 24/7 365 service, and I must say this, they are some of the best people on the planet. And if anyone's wondering, if you're wondering what their telephone number it is 116 123.
I think well, it's obviously really important that you've mentioned that, Tim, and I think that brings us on great to obviously our final bit of the podcast, which is obviously I'm going to come around obviously to everyone and ask a tip that they would give to. So it could be many tips, it can be one, it can be a quote, it can be a sentence, or you can even do a paragraph if you'd want to, or what you would do to help someone cope with obviously the Christmas break, be that with them struggling with their food, it could be to do with their mental health, it could be with a loved one who's passed away, it could be with them struggling financially, what you would recommend to somebody. So I guess I'll start. I think when it comes to Christmas, I think it's just important to remember that obviously at the end of the day, you're still alive, you're still a wonderful person, you're not, I'm sure there's far unfortunately worse people out there than yourself currently, and obviously I think I'm sorry stealing Harry's point here, but obviously being grateful and reflecting of what you have currently is just a really important thing to remember. So Harry, I hope I haven't stolen your last one, but is there any tips or last quote that you would say to people?
No, I don't. Not now. No,
Don't do this to me.
I have no tips for anyone ever. So for Christmas time, I think you have to sort of be self-aware. I've mentioned it earlier, like financially, where you are mentally, how you are with food, how you are if you're in any services or if you contact any services frequently. I think put a bit of a plan in place to keep yourself grounded and present, but then also so you've got time to enjoy it, because that's what this season's supposed to be about, is actually joy. So if yours is having a quiet Christmas and just having some me time and just looking after yourself and you enjoy that, then do that. Don't buy into the hype. It's different for everyone, and that's the thing, Christmas is supposed to be happy, and I know obviously we've spoken about the commercial aspects where it's like, yes, you'll only be happy if you have this, but it's not the case. The case is you doing what's best for you and for your immediate close circle of people, whether that's friends, whether that's family, whether that's whoever, take the time and doing what you enjoy. And if it's doing nothing, do nothing. You know, I just think it's really put a plan in place. And if you feel like you're going to struggle and you need to call someone, reach out to someone, reach out to a service, try it out now before Christmas hits. And then you know where you can go if you need it, if you are struggling. You know, don't just wait for something bad to happen. Like, take that proactive step of, okay, if I'm going to struggle, I know I can call this place. Do you know what I mean? Like, that would be my tip.
No, I think you've made a really good point there, and I think it's, as I say, the part about just, you know, making a list and just looking after yourself was truly important. So, Jack, any final words you would give to somebody who might be struggling over the Christmas period about any of the things we've raised tonight?
Well, obviously we've raised quite a few points tonight, such as obviously kind of like loss in multiple forms, such as like losing a loved one because of COVID or whatnot, or losing someone in a relationship. So I think that, say if someone was going through that kind of problem this Christmas, I'd personally make the effort to actually do a small act of kindness towards them. Like, I might even surprise them with something that I even like handcrafted myself, because I think that this year, especially with financial strains on multiple kind of like families, I think it's important to kind of like innovate in that and to kind of adapt and kind of like make your own present to people that you care about. And if someone was struggling, I think it would definitely be in the spirit of Christmas to kind of make them a little something, something cheap, but something that could make them happy. Or even a card, as mentioned before, like just write them a card. Like, I think on the whole, if I could give a tip, it would be to kind of like be aware of people that could be suffering the most this Christmas, and to just do one small act of kindness for them, because it really could help change the whole mindset and turn it around. Because it takes one little act of kindness which can break a vicious cycle of rumination.
I think, as the saying goes, it's the thought that counts, isn't it? That makes a big difference.
That's
Tim,
what I said.
Did you say? Did you say? I'm not sorry.
I said that earlier.
I thought you said it was the gift that counts. No. You know, final thoughts, Tim. Anything you want to say to anybody out there who might be struggling?
Yes, for those who dread Christmas, I want them to remember this: that Christmas, or the Christmas period, is a relatively short space of time compared to the rest of the year. And it will pass. And feelings are never permanent. You know, you might feel depressed one day, but the next day you might feel a bit better. But nothing's permanent. But also, I've said this before on other podcasts, on other episodes. Sorry, and I can't say enough. Reach out to someone if you're struggling. Like I said, it could be a charity like the Samaritans, or the campaign against living miserably, or Calm. Or it could be a friend or a family member. But this Christmas, if you are struggling, please, please, please don't suffer alone and in silence.
I think that's truly important there, Tim. You know, don't feel like you're ever alone in these situations. And I think what Harry was saying earlier about that, I don't know if it was an app, Harry, or a. Do you want to just mention that again, Harry? Just at the end here. What was it called?
Yeah, it's literally a hashtag. So if you go on Twitter and search hashtag join in, JOININ. It's set up and ran by the comedian Sarah Millican, and it starts literally as soon as Christmas Day starts. I think I was on it from about 6 a.m. last time till the evening. And it's just good. You can literally just scroll down and you can just start tweeting yourself, and as long as you put the hashtag join in, other people will find it and other people will respond to you. And I don't think I saw a single tweet where no one had responded. So it's really positive, and I think more people should get stuck in. And, you know, even if you're not alone, it's always nice just to show other people what you're doing and, you know, reply to other people and sort of lift each other up. So yeah, it's hashtag join in.
Thank you for that, Harry. I think we will round this podcast up here. Our next podcast is most likely going to potentially be on, you know, the start of next year, or, you know, leaving 2020. But our social media, if you want to follow us, we have our Twitter, our Instagram, and our website in the description. So if you want to, you know, learn a bit more about us or follow us, keep up to date with us, you can always follow us there. But thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Wow, guys, you don't want to say bye. I'm really, really shocked.
I said bye.
I know. Jack, Tim, come on. You've got to join in.
I was slow on the unmic button.
I was trying to interrupt you because I was going to plug the conference. I was going to be like, oh, yeah, well, one thing I'm looking forward to early next year is Let's Get Mental, the next chapter.
Oh, well, I'm still recording, but, you could mention it still. I mean, might as well. I the whole point of this little part of the podcast was to
redo the outro, and I'll...
No. We're not cutting this. I want Tim and Jack to say bye-bye, and then you mention the
Okay, we need to... Okay, right. Those two need to say bye, and then I'll mention...
Come on, Tim and Jack, say bye.
Wait,
Okay.
no, that don't make any sense. That's the backwards order, isn't it? Okay, I'm plugging the conference. Our conference, Let's Get Mental, the next chapter, which is our third conference, 3 years in a row consecutively, is coming virtually and somewhat sort of in person, but more details will be revealed. So yeah, check our social media, and that's coming soon, early next year.
All right, thank you very much for watching. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Good, I got it.
Happy holidays.